All right, students, let's get going with our Board 2, Modern Period, 1750-1900. How did independence revolutions and the Industrial Revolution change the world? So, Latin American independence movements. Latin American countries were inspired by the American and French revolutions for their own independence. The first was Haiti. Haiti was a French colony that was 90% slaves, which revolted against the French and eventually Napoleon's army that he sent in 1804, and then Haiti is its own republic. So the Haitian slaves revolted against the plantation owners, were able to put them down, and then Napoleon sent about 20,000 troops and the slaves beat them back. Simon Bolivar leads the northern South American colonies of Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela to revolt against Spain, which was controlled by Napoleon in the early 1800s. Now, Jose de San Martin helped lead forces in Chile, Argentina, Peru to freedom from the Spanish in 1814. Now, Brazil was its own country, worked towards its own country from Portugal. Brazil was ruled by John VI of Portugal. After Napoleon took over Portugal in 1807, his son Pedro I began to rule after John VI returned to Portugal. So Napoleon ruled Portugal for a short period of time, and during that time John VI came to Portugal. His son Pedro grew up most of his teenage years in Brazil, and when his father left he stayed and fought for its independence. Pedro II came to rule and declared Brazil independent, and in 1888 outlawed slavery. Now the landowning class revolted against Pedro II and the monarchy, and then set up their own republic in 1889. Now Mexico had a more difficult time claiming its independence from Spain. Miguel Hidalgo in 1810, Jose Morales 1815 led unsuccessful movements against Spain. Spain resisted the loss of Mexico until finally in 1821, Mexico independence. Now, while this was taking place in Latin America and in the Western Hemisphere, the agricultural movement and the Industrial Revolution were taking place primarily in Great Britain and then to spread throughout the rest of Europe. So new technologies made farming more efficient. As much as half the population of Great Britain leaves the farm for the cities. Urbanization was an outcome of the agricultural and Industrial Revolution as the cities began to grow quite rapidly. Now, potatoes and corn from the Columbian exchange crops allowed for much more food, and populations grew tremendously during this time. Cotton from the American, now we're talking about the Industrial Revolution. So the Agricultural Revolution led into the Industrial Revolution. Cotton from the American colonies is brought back to England in pre-Industrial Revolution times and spun in the domestic system. The domestic system is when this cotton comes into a warehouse, it's dispersed out to people's houses, and more often than not, women spin this cotton into a yarn or a fabric, and then they sell it back to who they acquired the cotton from. Advances in technology kind of negated this domestic system. 1733 had the flying shuttle, 1764 the spinning jenny, 1750 the use of water frame or water to move these mechanisms, 1793 had the cotton gin, all led to more rapid pace of the textile process. And the textile process is what pushed the Industrial Revolution forward. In the early 1700s, Thomas Newcomb creates the steam engine. 1769, James Watt dramatically improves the steam engine. 1807, the steamboat's created. Then in 1820, you have the railroad. And all this is taking place in England. Steel and coal would also help lead Great Britain into the Industrial Revolution. So during this time, you had other great inventions such as the telegraph, telephone, light bulb, internal combustion engine, radio. So this Industrial Revolution is a huge turning point, whereas before in history, people were using either manpower or like horsepower or using livestock. Now they're able to use machines. All right, this all led to the factory system. Eli Whitney's factory system of interchangeable parts and Henry Ford's assembly line meant factories could produce mass amounts of products. Factory work was very different than farm work. Workers in factories, 16-hour days, underpaid, dangerous. Women still had duties at home. Children were paid less than adults. Some worked as young as 6 years old. Very dangerous work. The author Charles Dickens portrayed these extreme conditions in many of his novels, and one of them, for example, is Oliver Twist. Remember, history's no mystery. Take good notes.